Sure and hit record.
March 27th. Thanks there, Jeff. 2000, March 27th. What did I say? I got an error already. March 27th, 2022. Welcome to another week of This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. And we got another good one for you. We're joined by Papa Beach, Steve Craw, the captain, and Sweet Lou in Lafayette. And we're going to recap an eventful college baseball scene. We're going to preview one of my favorite weeks. It's opening week in high school baseball in Indiana, and we're going to preview some of those games. And then we've got a special. We've got, that you see on your screen there, Tracy Smith. You probably know him. He played in the bigs as well as coach at 3 or 4 different universities. Miami of Ohio was one of them. Of course, he was head coach of IU. Then he was head coach at Arizona State. Now he said he's got all this free time, and he's starting a pretty cool venture. It's called Diamond Allegiance, and he's got a good crew that along with him there. He's got, I believe, the head coach of Michigan, the head coach of Florida. I mean, this guy knows a lot of people. For those of you tuning in, you see something new on your screen there. That is our stream for the upcoming games this week for the IHSAA, the Indiana High School Games. That is your schedule stream for Monday through Saturday. And, of course, next week we'll have another stream where we have the scores from the previous week. So we're getting big time here, fellas. We're almost looking legit. What do you think? Chris, let's pass things over to you, and let's see what you've been up to. You're almost back up to full sprint on that knee, I bet. I joke. How's things going, Chris? Tell me how your week's been.
Not bad, winding down. Like everyone who works in a school, just ready for spring break, which starts Friday. And hopefully next week be able to go watch some high school games and some college games.
Yeah, a lot going on for sure. I had to give thanks to my dad here. Once again, this show is sponsored by coffee. And we move up to Elkhart. Steve, who you been talking to this week and last? You're busy as always. I know you put out an article about Tracy Smith, who we interviewed, and you put out a few this week. Who you been talking to?
Oh, Jeff Enright is the coach at Wheeling in the region there. I talked with them. The Bearcats won their sectional last year, and they got a lot of good players coming back. Rex Stills had a monster season, and he moved on. He's at Purdue Fort Wayne, but they got some big things. And I also learned, kind of exciting to me, anyways, that they are going to get a turfed, baseball and softball diamond there. I'm thinking, since I did a story a couple of years ago about the turf fields on high school campuses, that number's doubled or tripled since that time. There might be close to 30, 40 either in place or on the way. So what they're going to do is turf the football field, and then their next project is to move the baseball and softball diamond to the other end of the campus and put turf on those.
Nice. I tell you, that's
he's like a lot of people. Jeff's like a lot of people, traditionalist, but what that does for weather and rainouts and that kind of stuff, it's like it's worth the trade off.
Yeah. I'll tell you, that kind of goes into one of the things we talked about. Matter of fact, I think it was a question that Jeff asked Tracy Smith when we had the interview with him this week. He was talking about, all these great fields that are popping up all over the place. And, you got to, they're a business, and you got to keep them full. He's talking about the new one coming up there in Northeast Indiana and Grand Park, of course. And
Sports Park you're talking about.
Yep, that's right. And, one of the finances and baseball, we've said this 100 times, it's as old as time. People talk about the cost of baseball. Actually, one of the things Tracy Smith said is, right from the get-go, you've got a cost issue with baseball because of the size of the land that you need just to have a field. And then you throw in, training and, the modern environment of travel ball and things like that. And, that's one of the things where Tracy's Diamond Allegiance is going to try to fill in the gap. Jeff, let's go up to you or over to you. You're up there in Lafayette, and I know you got a lot going on with high school baseball starting this week. If you didn't know, Jeff is our resident polling representative for the team here. He gets a vote in the rankings for IHSA for the classes. But one thing we've been talking about, Jeff, is all the stuff going on. You look at schedules, you've got ScoreStream Live, you've got IHSBCA's website, you've got Max Preps. Go to all three of them, you get a different schedule on all three of them. I think Max Preps is generally regarded as the source for baseball schedules and scores. And, that's one thing that you're deeply involved with, Jeff. And, if you want to just go right into it now, we could talk about it now with, what the coaches need to do to get their scores and just even their schedule on Max Preps.
Well, I'm going to kind of be a safety valve a little bit. I know the corporate office in California where Max Preps is located, they've sent out 2 reminders to coaches about entering their schedules and entering their rosters. And my number's on there. The coaches can contact me directly, Jeff Luzatter at Comcast.net, or they can contact the corporate office. Coaches are probably kind of busy right now. So if you want to send me your schedule, if you want to send me your roster, we can get those in. A lot of teams have already got their stuff in and probably ready to go. The best way to enter stats in Max Preps obviously is through Game Changer, because it's just an upload. But if you don't have an iPad, you can always enter stats in manually. We've said it for a couple of 2 or 3 weeks now that I'm going to give a certificate for the Player of the Week honors, and in order to qualify, you've got to have your stats in Max Preps. There's also a place there for a team picture. There's also a place for each player's profile page for a headshot. Makes it look really nice when college coaches are kind of looking around at stats and stuff like that. There's a lot of coaches now not getting on the road. They're going to websites looking for stats, hearing about this kid, hearing about that kid. So if they want to contact me, I'd be happy to help them out or steer them in the right direction with any help they might need to get their stats in. Obviously, we want to promote that. The other thing I'm looking forward to, Dan, is like you said, opening week, Lafayette. Jeff, we've got 3 games this week. Open up against Central.
Good Central timing Catholic. There. Good timing on your ring there. That was nice.
Oh yeah, Lafayette Central Catholic, our big rivalry in athletics here in the city of Lafayette. We open up on their field. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. If it's Wednesday, it might get a little damp, but Thursday might be looking good. And then next weekend, which the weather looks like in the 50s, we're going to host a doubleheader, one game with Jake Burton and the Twin Lakes Indians at Loeb Stadium, and then the nightcap will be against Kankakee Valley. So real excited about the season to get started. Obviously, we need the weather to cooperate a little bit, and then of course getting off kilter a little bit. Major League Baseball will be starting next weekend too. So pretty exciting time.
Yeah, I tell you, isn't it? That if that doesn't sum it up, I don't know what else does. It's an exciting time. Jeff, I want to ask you another question about that Max Preps real quick, because you hit on something that kind of ties in with everything we're doing on this show. One of the things Diamond Allegiance does is they try to fill that gap, if you will, or find opportunities for people in travel ball where finances is an issue. And they do it a lot of different ways. We'll hear about that when we get to that. But, one thing you alluded to there is that player profile page, because I don't think it's a cost to put your team stats and player profile pages up on Max Preps, is it?
No, it doesn't cost. If you've got any kind of videos or anything like that, a lot of people, everybody's got a video device in their hand now with their phone. If somebody would happen to see, get a walk-off like you talked about with a player from Texas Tech off camera there. If somebody's got that, they can mount that up on a kid's player page for future reference. And it's a nice little tool to promote a team, their players and their team.
Exactly. And so, small schools, schools that don't have a big travel ball scene or anything like that, there's your way. You've got an audience now that every college coach looks at Max Preps. Every recruiter looks at Max Preps. If you can't afford, PBR evaluations and things like that, you've got a vehicle now. This is 2022. You have channels where it's not going to cost $1 million to get some exposure to a player out there. And plus, people like us, big fans like us, we love it. So let's talk forward here, guys. Let's talk about this week in baseball across Indiana. And let's start out with the college scene. Let's do some stats here real quick. Give a recap of the records this week and past. Of course, Ball State went 1-0. ISU went 2-0. Notre Dame lost one. Purdue 1-0 still after dropping their first to Illinois State. So, looking at these, Valpo also went 2-0. So Valpo's back up to even now. They're 9-9. They played Notre Dame. So and Notre Dame just still keeps chugging along. They're 12-5 now. They hit a couple, speed bumps, I guess you could say. But looking at our D1 right here, you've got Ball State at 12-8. ISU at 13-7, Notre Dame highly ranked still 12-5, Purdue still chugging along at 18-1. And then, like I said earlier, Valpo at 9-9. We got a pretty decent looking D1 season this year. We only have one person ranked. I didn't check them today. I didn't check if Purdue was ranked today or not. Well, I guess the big rankings come out tomorrow. The D1baseball.com is the one I check, but. The big game we talked about last week with Purdue, well, the week before, because last week was the high school preview show. We didn't really get to talk about much, but I think the game that all the Purdue fans had on their radar was that Illinois State game. And man, I don't know if you guys saw that series, but what a series. I think the first two both went into extra innings. Purdue lost one in extra innings, but boy, their speed just about kept them undefeated again. As their center fielder, and his name just left me, he got a single, stole second, and then third, and then passed ball home just like that. We're in extra innings. So Purdue keeps chugging along, 18-1 with I think they took 2 out of 3 from Illinois State. So I think they've got momentum as we head into the Big Ten standings. Any notes on D1 before we move along to D2?
And I just want to mention that, next week, most of the Big Ten teams will be starting conference play. Being a Hoosier fan, we host Northwestern, but I think most of the schools will be starting Big Ten play. That's pretty exciting, too. That's icing on the cake for this week.
Steve, I think, did you have something, or Jeff?
I was just saying, because of the weather, they moved, some moving parts. They were going to move the Ball State at Western Michigan. They were going to move some games to Monday and play at Valpo.
Really?
But then Valpo needed to play. They needed to make up a game, play there. So the games got bounced to Muncie. So they're supposed to play tomorrow, and then we'll have to see. The thing in Valpo's favor and Ball State's favor is the turf. They don't have that at Western Michigan. That's why they were doing that. But if it's a little wet, they can deal with it. If it's cold, just how cold can they stand it? That's the question.
Baseball in Indiana in March. It's
Yep, exactly.
That's how it rolls. That's how it goes. Let's move along to the D2 scene this week. Purdue Northwest, a tough week, but they're still 10-6. And UIndy, I got to say that UIndy is not going to finish below 500. I still think UIndy is going to finish above 500. So, and USI has a good chance too as well. I was got to think, a buddy of mine kid named Miner for UIndy. Got to give a shout out to him with his first home run. He's a son of a kid I went to school with, so congrats to him. I think he's going to be. He watches a few of these. So, but USI was 2-4. UIndy was 2-4. Now, did I type that in right? USI and UIndy are both 2-4 and 7-11.
UIndy was 2-4. Southern Indiana was 1-3, and they're 11-10 overall.
Southern Indiana was what? 2-3.
They were 1-3 this week, and they're 11-10 overall.
The magic of editing. Look at that. We fixed it, and they are over 500. So we got to give them a highlight. I figured I was wrong on that. So USI, I figured they were over 500, and they're going to catch steam. They're definitely going to be a few games over 500. But I think UIndy, I think all of our D2 teams are going to finish above 500 this year, and that's pretty strong for the D2 scene right there. We've got a kind of small representation for D2 in Indiana, but I think they're strong representation nonetheless. Let's go to D3 here real quick. And, some D3 teams are looking good as well. Earlham still at 11-3, 1-1 this week. Franklin 3-0 at 13-5. Roseholman 2-1 this week and 7-4 for the new coach. And Wabash, good week, 3-0, and they're 12-2. So another good week. And, Anderson, did I have that right? Did Anderson get rained out all week this week?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I think they're going to be, you look at this, and I still think them and DePaul, Hanover, the season's still early. D3 doesn't play as many games. They don't play as many games, and they start later. So, I think in the next coming weeks, we're going to get a better picture of how their season is going to look going forward.
Depends on what school they are, but they're about a third of the way through their season. They play 40 games and, look at 16, 14 games.
And they started about a full week and a half after everybody else. I mean, not counting NAIA, but after D2 and D3, or D2 and D1, they started about a week and a half after them, I believe. Possibly in 2 weeks. Any other thoughts on D3 before we go to the very prolific NAIA scene here in Indiana? And I'll tell you what, look at this right here. You got the light blue, our 500 teams with Huntington right there at 11-11 after a good 3-1 week. Marion, another good week at 2-0. They're 13-13. But look at some of these others. You got IU Kokomo. We talked about them at the beginning of the year, didn't we? 18-8. IU Southeast, 19-9. Coach Real, he's like he said, he's going to start slow. He's a slow-moving train, but by the end of the year, he's going to be strong. It's good to see Oakland City there. They had 0-1, but they're 16-12, so they're really turning around. They got a slow start. USF and Taylor both with a good week. They're sitting at 19-8 and 19-9. So if you look at those teams
they were
there,
supposed to play. They're going to if the weather cooperates, to play tomorrow to make up. They're supposed to play this weekend.
Well, a lot of these scores you see,
rain, but it didn't happen just yet.
Well, and a lot of these scores you see, they don't count today's games. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. Like I think in the D3 scene, Manchester, I think had 2 today. I don't think we included those on the overall record. So I mean, they could be even better than what we're looking at here. But we're NAIA fans. This whole crew, we're all NAIA fans. So what do you think, guys? Any highlights or anything you want to stand out on this right here on the NAIA scene?
You got a big series coming up this week with Huntington and Marion.
Oh yeah,
and then Huntington and Indiana Wesleyan right after that. So
whew.
I mean, there's 8 games for Huntington against some of the better teams in the conference and in the state coming up.
Well, look at them. With Huntington at 11-11. Indiana Wesleyan 11-13, and Marion at 13-13. That's these are huge games coming up. Absolutely, good point. Let's look at the JUCO scene here. Ivy Tech 2-0, new coach there, 9-5. He's still holding strong. Ancilla at 3-19 had a 1-3 week this week. Vincennes 2-3-1. Junior college has ties. I thought they'd play those for, another 20 innings if it needed it. 11-12-1. So they're right there at 500 as well. Ivy Tech, I'm excited about them with 9-5. And who's the kid we talked about last week with the fastball hitting 99? Can't remember his name. I'm horrible with names. But,
Homestead kid.
Yeah, you're right. So
Pumping gas.
I haven't been able to go up and see them play.
Matt Peters. I think he's from Dwenger, but yeah, he's a Fort Wayne kid.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Matt Peters, and he's got a future. Let's put it that way. We need to keep our eye on him for sure. So that is the college scene. Going forward, let's look at a little behind the scenes page I have here on our website. These are some of the games that are coming up, and you see a lot of cancellations there. There's Sunday, Monday, Ball State and Western Michigan's got a doubleheader. Tuesday, Butler at Bellarmine. Bellarmine, Steve, didn't you say they got a lot of Indiana ties on Bellarmine, don't they?
Oh yeah, a bunch. They got about 9 players. The coaches from Indiana guy.
Nice.
Yeah, they got a lot of the Indiana connection at Bellarmine.
Also Tuesday, Purdue's playing UIC. That's University of Illinois Chicago, and they are going to be. I tell you, that's another team to watch. University of Illinois Chicago. First of all, they got a great stadium, overlooking Chicago there, but also they're going to be in the Missouri Valley next year. So they're a team to watch. Plus, look at that. $3 tickets, hot dogs, beer, popcorn, nachos, trading card set. You got to love that at Purdue versus UIC. The Valpo's at Purdue Fort Wayne, Notre Dame at Northern Illinois, Evansville at Austin Peay, and then ISU and Purdue. That's one I've had highlighted at Lafayette. 4 o'clock Wednesday. I'm going to check how much of vacation time I have at work, and I might be there. Indiana State at Purdue, and I hope it doesn't rain.
I wasn't sick.
Yeah, exactly. If my boss is watching this right now, if I call in sick, all receipts will come from Lafayette this Wednesday. Then Purdue Northwest at Lewis, Purdue at, and of course a doubleheader there, is it? Purdue at Indiana State. I think one of the ISU, they both say 4 o'clock, so I got to. Oh, okay, never mind, because that's Purdue. I'm a hat guy, fellas. You got to hang with me here. I've got Purdue's calendar on here and Indiana State, so that's why it's showing twice. Then Friday, Ball State at Toledo, Purdue Northwest at Grand Valley State, Butler at home versus Eastern Illinois, baseball versus UIC. That is, I don't know the calendar on that. I don't like it when the calendars don't put their team name. ISU versus Illinois State, another big one right there this Friday. Evansville versus Michigan State Friday at 7 o'clock. That's awesome. Purdue is at Illinois Friday night, and then Notre Dame goes down to Florida to take on the Seminoles. What's that? The old adage of Notre Dame versus Florida State when they were big football rivalries. You know the slogan there. What is it? Catholics versus the criminals. Is that how that went?
Convicts.
Catholics versus the convicts. Then Saturday, got a full lineup Saturday. Ball State still in Toledo. Butler's and Eastern Illinois. Purdue Northwest still at Grand Valley State. Whoever's playing University of Illinois Chicago there, I have to look that one up. ISU versus Illinois State. Notre Dame still down there in Florida. Butler at Eastern Illinois. Evansville versus Michigan State. Man, I wish that was. Is that at Evansville? It says versus Michigan State. I'm gonna have to look that up. Ball State at Toledo, Purdue Northwest, and Notre Dame or Purdue at Illinois, Valpo at UIC. Okay. Then Sunday, a week from today, some of the big ones here. Notre Dame still at Florida State, ISU and Illinois State. Some good games this week, some big ones, but the big one to me is Friday. Is it Friday or Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. ISU and Purdue, man, I'm going to do everything I can to get out of that game get out of work and get to that one right there. So that's our schedule for the college scene this week. Guys, let's talk a little high school baseball. We got about 10, 15 minutes to talk some high school baseball. And then we're going to listen to Tracy Smith talk about the Diamond Allegiance. And, first thing, the rankings here that are way off the screen. Good job there, Dan. Good editing. Let's get those back on the screen. Look at this high-tech graphics right here. We're going to do that, and we're going to do something like that, and that looks horrible, but we're just going to cover the whole screen like that. There we go. That's the if you didn't see them last week, this is the rankings. And obviously nothing's changed. This is a preseason poll, but anything we didn't talk about last week, when you look at these polls, again, this is just preseason. You talk to any coach and they don't mean anything except to people like us that like to talk about it and to find the big games of the week and things like that. But, any games that plus I want to talk about this again a little quick because last week we had the audio issue that missed a lot of this coverage. But one of the things I talked about was that two-way right there. You have Providence, the defending champ, right there at number 1. You have Eastside, which was a runner-up last year, at 10. Then at 9, you have University, which is, they've been there 3 out of the last 4 years, or 2 out of the last 3 years, or maybe it was 3 out of the last 4. Fairfield, of course, they have the Hirschberger kid that we interviewed last week. He's going to be a stud. Delphi's got a new coach. I like what he's doing. I love, Wapahani, as good as they were last year. This to me is one that originally stuck out. I know, Jeff, you talked about that 4A sectional, or the 4A teams last week. Give us a little recap of what you talked about last week with that 4A.
Well, just looking at the top, you've got Fisher, Zionsville, and Westfield. They're all in the Hoosier Crossroads Conference. I mean, those 3 teams are just going to beat up on each other, and maybe only one, maybe 2 of those will be, stay up there at the top. I just think that's really tremendous that you get 3 teams out of the same conference rated in the top 10 like that, and then you go right on down then after those 3. And of course, Jasper has such a tradition of excellence there. They're going to be in the hunt, and some of the other teams, Carmel, obviously, and then you get up into the region. Lake Central always has a nice program, and Cathedral. One thing I wanted to point out a little bit is if you look at the teams across all 4 classes, I mentioned it off camera, Dan, but Lafayette Central Catholic opens up against Lafayette Jeff. Lafayette Jeff goes to Central Catholic, but the IHSA mandates that you got to get 5 practices in before you can play your first game. And with Lafayette Central Catholic boys, Providence boys, I'm talking about basketball teams now, they've got to get 5 practices in. So you got Cathedral. I don't know how many of their players. It'd be nice to know sometime, maybe a statistic somebody can investigate on how many these teams that are in the upper echelon of this poll have basketball players that are also baseball players.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. We may be missing some of the big names in the first week. And matter of fact, while we're talking about that 4A bracket, I mean, Fisher, Zionsville, Westfield, and Carmel, that's the number 1 ranked, number 2 ranked, number 3 ranked, and number 7 ranked are in the same sectional. So
That doesn't seem right, does it?
that is nuts. Steve, you were talking about the 1A bracket last week, and a really good point you made about Borden.
Yeah, Borden hasn't really made the noise at some of those teams that are ranked there. And like you say, this poll is just for people to talk and interest people like us, but that's why they have polls,
Right.
It really only counts. They have a tournament to decide who wins this whole thing, but it gets eyeballs and gets tongues flapping, so that's a good thing. But Borden, has had a very good program, but I don't know that, and they probably have had state championship aspirations, but maybe this is their year. So,
well, the fact that they're ranked above the defending champion, the 6 or 7 time champion, Lafayette Central Catholic, and then, they're ranked above Shakamak. Anybody who saw this show over the last few weeks knows how much of a fan I am of Shakamak just because of their tough schedule. We didn't talk about the 3A. There was a little bit of, I don't want to call it controversy, but confusion, I guess you could say, on the 3A bracket because Andrean was ranked number 1 in the 3A, but then the original poll, and we're talking about the IHSBCA poll, basically the coaches poll, and Jeff is, like I said earlier, he gets a vote in this as well. Andrean was also listed with votes in the 4A, but just to confirm, they are in 3A. But I'll tell you what, that bracket right there, another good one. You're talking Andrean, Coach Pischker with over 1,000 wins, the all-time winningest coach in Indiana high school baseball. You've got Silver Creek right there, which is just, Silver Creek's another one like Shakamak. A lot of people haven't heard of Silver Creek, but if you're a baseball fan, you've heard of Silver Creek. They're right down there around the New Albany area. They've got one of the
Sellersburg, Indiana.
Yeah, yep. They've got one of the best Little League programs in the state. Matter of fact, they were in the state finals in Little League the last 2 years, and they played Brownsburg both years. 2 years ago, they beat Brownsburg, and then this year Brownsburg beat them. But and then Lebanon, they've got a guy playing for IU right now. Brebuff's got Dukanich, who's a Vanderbilt commit, one of the top pitchers in the country. Batesville, I love what they're doing. Plus, I love their hat, so I got to mention them all the time. And Newcastle's got a great new program. They've got a pitcher there that's going to IU. We had him on the show last week. Is that Carson Petty?
New coach to boot, Dan.
Yeah, new coach as well. So and a new
Aiden
coach.
Decker Petty.
Yeah, Aiden Decker Petty.
And Newcastle has been good. Newcastle had Trey Ball several years ago, and several baseball players have gone on and played at the next level.
Yep. Well, and Western, that's a team, I tell you what, they are going to be tough. If you look at that 3A bracket and a team that could potentially end up at number 1, I'm thinking possibly Western. It's one of those schools that doesn't have a
3 D1s right now.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's one of those teams where, they've got a name where how many teams in the state have, like Western, then right there, right underneath them is Northwestern. Then you got West Vigo. All these teams like to have the West and the North. They kind of get lost in the shuffle. They don't have a standout name like Andrean, where it's
If you live in that community, that direction means something to you.
Exactly.
In Howard County, it's west of what, it's east of what. But,
right. Well, them and Northwestern both are going to be tough. And then, of course, you got Coach Jennings right there standing out at number 10. Just a great coach and someone you always got to look out for. Looking at the games just in the next couple days, I wanted to highlight some of these games. I'm going to throw this over here real quick and talk about some of these games on the schedule for this coming week. I don't know if you guys can read that or not. I'll zoom in here a little bit. If I let's bring this over here, and I'm going to zoom in because I want to highlight some of these games on the schedule here real quick. There we go. Now you can probably see that a little bit better. Some of them I highlighted. First of all, these are Monday games, and first of all, going with what Jeff said. This is based on Max Preps. This schedule is based on Max Preps. So if you don't have your games on Max Preps, folks, get them on there because we want to talk about them. But you've got Hobart and Maryville, right out of the gate, a big region rivalry game. Some, a new coach at Hobart too. Well, second-year coach at Hobart. Or is he a first-year coach?
New coaches.
Yeah.
First-year coaches at both places.
Both, right. Then Goshen and Fairfield, I had that highlighted, because that's the first time we're going to be able to see Hirschberger. We're hoping these games happen. This is Monday. Tomorrow, the weather could make it difficult. Another one I highlighted there was North Central and Westfield. First chance to get to see Cade Stanifer, possibly.
There's a game that interests me that you can't see on that page just because it's supposed to be a 6 o'clock start. And that is Fisher's Homestead at Taylor University.
Fisher's and home.
Yeah.
Fisher's
Homestead, and they're going to play it at Taylor. And the reason for that, I'm guessing, is it's sort of equidistance between the two places, and Taylor has a turf.
Is that, I thought that
field,
might have
so
been
the
on,
weather-
was that on Monday? I thought that might have been on Tuesday. I'm looking here because I think I had that one highlighted
That's on
as well.
Monday, as far as I know.
Is it? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, going to,
But it's a 6 o'clock start, and you got till 5:30 is what that screen you got there says.
okay, that's why.
There might be
it's-
some games below that one.
it's getting cut off a little bit. The Tuesday game, some others had highlighted here. Of course, Andrean, one of the almost far north part of the state, goes all the way to the far south part of the state, takes on Jeffersonville. Washington Township, another Hobart game on my radar here with Washington Township and Hobart. One I should have highlighted, I'll highlight it here real quick. Griffith and Kankakee Valley. I'm excited about what Kankakee Valley is going to do this year. And of course, Griffith with Coach Jennings, their preseason ranked number 10. There was a few others I highlighted here. Central Noble, they got some D1 talent there going up against Bremen, and I highlighted this the next one there, Lalamere versus South Bend Riley. Lalamere, if you're up in northern Indiana or you're a basketball fan, you know Lalamere. But they are having a baseball team this year, so I thought I would highlight that one. Another I wanted to highlight was Duggar Union. We talked about this team last week a little bit. Steve, you just did an article on, is it Coach Phillips, is it? And they are, very small school, but their coach there is working on building the program.
Philip Reynolds, actually.
Philip Reynolds. Okay. I said Coach Phillips. Yeah, Philip Reynolds. I'm sorry. But they're coming right out of the gate playing a big 4A school. So I got to give props to that. I want to highlight anytime these schools play any of the big guys coming up. Of course, then you got on Wednesday, you got a big one, Columbus East and Center Grove. And Wednesday, there's a lot of big games on Wednesday. Mitchell and Borden right there. We could talk about them games for a while. But so that's just kind of a look real quick at the games coming up. But, anything else you're excited about for the upcoming high school season?
It's here.
Yeah, that's it. Try to see as many games, different places. I'm still looking at that. Just kind of map it out and see what it can do.
That's what to talk about my. I've said multiple times. I'm a hat collector, so I've been on I've done some interviews. There's a community of hat collectors across the country, and they're all big baseball fans. It's not just hat fans. They're like me. They're big baseball fans. And, one of the questions they've asked me a lot, and I've said this on this show as well, is why am I such a big fan of high school baseball specifically? Now, amateur baseball, it's easy to say you're a fan of amateur baseball if you want to include like minor league in that category, although I don't. I consider that professional baseball, but basically everything other than Major League Baseball. But why am I such a big fan of high school baseball? And it's real easy. Growing up, I grew up in the kind of the middle of nowhere, north of Terre Haute, went to South Marion High School, right on the Illinois line, surrounded by cornfields and woods. And so, we're not a hop, skip, and a jump to any professional baseball organization to see games all the time. And, we're with two channels on the TV in the 1970s, you had the rabbit ears with the tinfoil and everything. You had two channels. I wasn't seeing a lot of games either. Obviously, there's no ESPN. But having two older brothers, I got to follow them all the way from Little League all the way through high school. And I could tell you stats on their high school teams when I was in sixth grade, because that was my baseball. And I've been a fan ever since. But that's kind of a specific story. But generally speaking, I think something that we can all relate to is it is the last chance for pure baseball that represents a community. So there's that community aspect part of it. And it's the last time that can happen at the amateur level is high school baseball. It's the last time that, Hobart, like we mentioned earlier, can represent Hobart. It's the last time that Jeffersonville gets to represent Jeffersonville. So it's that community pride, and it's still an innocent form of baseball. Kids still make errors, and that's why coaches pull their hair out, but it's why fans like me love it. If you want to talk about errors, I don't if Coach Mattingly's watching from Southridge, I hate to bring up a sour topic, but if you want to go back to 2019 and that 2A state championship of Southridge and Alexandria Monroe, that might have been the best, most entertaining baseball game I have seen at any level. Any level. That includes Major League Baseball games, all the Cincinnati Red games and everything like that I go to every year, because the game was, we could probably have a whole show just about that game. That is why I am a high school baseball fan, and that is why I am so excited about this coming week. So, guys,
Okay.
Go ahead, Steve. No, go ahead.
I mean, you see the emotions at the end of the season, and especially the seniors, and they say, this group of guys will never be together again for this purpose. They may not see much of each other the rest of their lives, but they won't have that team together now. Now, are you going to have the Atlanta Braves? They've been broken up, sure, but at least there's the possibility that those guys might get to go on and play with each other, or play the game itself for more than 4 years. High school kids don't get to do that. So that's why it's so emotional when they don't want to leave the field after the game. I mean, they don't want to leave the court after the basketball season's over, because soak it all up, whether they won or they lost. They want to remember that stuff. So you can understand the tears flowing a little bit.
And it gives guys like us something to talk about for years. We'll be talking about, some of the state title games that we've seen over the last few years. We'll be talking about those forever. And they weren't teams from our hometowns. They weren't teams that, we really have a tie to. So, I can imagine, if I lived in Southridge or if I lived in Alexandria Monroe, how much that would just resonate for the rest of my life. And, that's just for fans like me. So, guys, let's talk to Tracy Smith. And this was a great conversation. Like always, I try to edit them down to keep our show under an hour and a half. That's kind of the standard time frame we're going on our shows, an hour and a half, thanks to my big mouth. But, so I didn't get to have the whole show on here. But Steve and Jeff, you guys were on there. Anything you want to highlight before we hit play and listen to Coach Smith?
I don't have anything except just the fact that a real down-to-earth guy, a guy that looks like he's found his niche in life, and he doesn't have a job. He's got a passion, and it looks like he's putting all his effort into it to make it successful.
Well, and he knows people. It kind of reminds me of when we talked to the new AD / first year baseball coach for the upcoming IUPUC, the IUPUI Columbus baseball team. These guys that are starting new organizations, they have so many connections, but they're good people too. And Coach Smith even says that, the things that you can learn from baseball go so far beyond baseball if you would just listen and watch. And he mentions that a little bit in this interview. I hope I didn't edit that part out. So let's take a listen to Coach Smith as he talks about his new venture with Diamond Allegiance.
How did you become involved with Diamond Allegiance? I guess you're a founding member, and how did that all come about?
Yeah. So when I was coaching my last, probably I think 2 years at Arizona State, I had the actual good fortune to meet a gentleman, founder of the company named Sandy Ogg, through, ironically, an Indiana University connection. When I was in Indiana, one of the former senior associate ADs, Tim Fitzpatrick, who had moved on, and at that point was with the Coast Guard as their athletic director, and had come across the gentleman, Sandy Ogg, who I'd referenced. And when I was coaching, Tim had reached out to me and says, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy. really great guy, runs a travel ball organization up in New York, and just want you to meet him. So I jumped on a plane, flew out and spoke to their organization. But just in my short time of talking to Sandy, I was really impressed with what they were doing in the travel ball space, and I'm very passionate. I've always been very passionate about creating opportunities for kids who can't be a part of it. If you looked at our rosters over the time, we tried to have a diverse roster, and we made a really conscious effort to beat the bushes to find kids to play. And when I saw what Sandy was doing, which was essentially funding through scholarships travel baseball, which is expensive, and that's one of the things that I'm sure we'll dive into with the Diamond Allegiance. But the fact that he was taking kids that some of them were homeless and some of them that didn't know where their next meal was coming from, and provided opportunities for to not just advance in baseball, but advance in life using the vehicle of baseball, and ultimately sending some 50 plus kids, boys and girls, on to colleges through baseball and softball. I loved it. And so now you fast forward, and this goes to my life reset when my situation changed at Arizona State. Sometimes we have life resets that we choose to have and some that are kind of forced upon us. I had been serving on the board of the company while I was coaching the foundation for 2 years. And then I ultimately dove in full time. And for me, having been a coach, I was a head coach since I was 30. I put a lot of time in this. It was a nice time for a change for me. And I looked at it as my way of giving back to ultimately try to help the game of baseball bigger and more impactful than maybe the 35 guys in the locker room that I had coached over my entire career. So kind of a short version of how I got there, but just when you find people in this world that align with your value set and try to accomplish some of the things that you accomplished, it became a natural fit. So I've been doing that now since June, full time, and working hard and pulling in some of my friends. You remember in our time, the World Series in 2013, Oregon State, but Pat Casey's a part of our team. And I really got to know Pat, three-time national champion coach in our competitions. And so he had retired and brought him in as well. So having a lot of fun doing it, and really learning a lot, and kind of just getting started on this journey.
So you're partnering with these travel organizations to help them do what they do better? Well, so yeah, it's interesting because we were always, as a coach, you're on the receiving end of kids coming up through the travel ball system. And I may be speaking to the choir here, but what was big for us was Legion baseball, back, and I played for Remington Post 280 in the state, but playing it, grew up in Babe Ruth, and then in Legion ball, which is kind of now defunct a little bit. It's all about travel ball. I think we have a stat that there's like 97% of kids who play college baseball play or get there through travel baseball. So really what the Diamond Allegiance is what we want to focus on is a development piece, because what we would see at college, and this is not a knock because everybody was kind of saying it, is there's this heavy emphasis on velocity now and spin rate and all these things. And as a college coach, you're like, okay, those are all fine and dandy, but can you help me win? Can you help us win baseball games and knowing how to play? So at the same time of the stuff that I had just described to you earlier, I developed some relationships with friends in the Major League Players Association who are also saying, hey, we've got an issue with how the game is being taught, and and we're ultimately seeing that filter up to the major league level. And gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could really take all of this years, when we were talking earlier before the show here about Davey Concepcion, and but you got this army of former players out there, professional players, former big league players that want to give back to the game as well. So everyone's kind of saying the same thing. And I don't want to say the system was broken, because it's not. Some people in travel ball business do an unbelievable job, but the industry itself has become more of a showcase exposure industry and not as much development. So what we're trying to do and are going to do with the Diamond Allegiance is offer up and create a 12-month development system that is currently not on the market or in existence at this point. Eric Bakich, colleague or former colleague and competitive colleague at University of Michigan, is designing, and all of our tech. So we're going to be offering a development platform, but
Think kind of Amazon Prime. There will be a membership, but then we're also going to give recruiting education. Anything you can imagine of the umpteen years of experience of the Pat Caseys of the world. You know, Kevin O'Sullivan, the head coach at Florida, is a part of our team, but just giving back and sharing the knowledge that we've had in this game to help and guide parents and players through this recruiting process. Because the other thing that I'm really passionate about is there's this myth, and I say myth because I started my coaching level at the lowest level. I mean, I started at Miami University of Middletown, which I guarantee none of you have heard of it on this call. And if you do, then I'll give you a giant high five. But there's this myth out there that if you don't play Power 5 baseball, it's in somehow way, shape, or form, you have failed. And I've always hated that, because anytime I would talk to groups and families and kids, I would say every one of you can play beyond high school. There's a place for you to do that. You just have to find the right fit. So one of the things that we're going to be doing with the Diamond Allegiance is really giving families and kids true direction, so that they can reach their aspiration. And sometimes they don't want to hear that, but through our development platform, there's going to be something that, I don't know how familiar you are with, you know, in professional baseball, they call it the OFP number. So where they rate your score, and that kind of is a predictive mechanism of how far you'll travel in pro ball. We have in our thing, it's the curve score, which is taking the brain data, the ball data, and the body data, and it will create a predictive mechanism. So we want to provide value, because I sit back and I watch the amount of money families spend on getting their kid a college, a $5,000 college scholarship when they're spending $20,000 a year to get there. So we want to provide direction of, okay, it's okay to spend that money, but let's spend it wisely. And maybe not, because I'll use an example. If we did a prospect camp at Arizona State, I'd have 100 kids there, when realistically, we maybe were going to recruit one of those. And it always struck me as, you know, these kids and families are paying this money to come when they have no chance of playing there. They should be somewhere else, or investing that money somewhere else if they want to play beyond high school. So it's a little bit of that, but at the coaches level, we want to have a certification. We want to help coaches design practice plans, all of those things, but using that IP that we built up over the years. And for the owners of the clubs themselves, which there are a lot of tremendous owners across the country, is just help facilitate what they're doing in terms of running better businesses. Because back to the San Diego gentleman that I referenced, and I apologize, I'm going, but I'm trying to give you a snapshot of this. There's a whole back office piece. I mean, this gentleman has placed he's a CEO developer across the world, Fortune 500 companies. So we're also helping these organizations run better businesses and be more efficient in those practices, with the idea and the hope that if they recoup and their expenses are down and they make money, that they'll reinvest that money into creating and providing opportunities for kids who can't afford to play. And that's the other pillar of our business, is we have a national foundation that families can apply for, to help offset and in some cases totally fund the travel ball experience. So in short, we're trying to create wins. And I don't even want to say try, because we are doing it. We're going to continue to do it, but create wins for the players, the parents, the coaches, and the organizational owners themselves. And it's a daunting task, and it's been 3 years in the making, but I can honestly sit here tonight as we're talking and saying, I'm having a blast doing it. So I really enjoy it.
So you kind of rolled this out for public consumption at the ABCA in Chicago, January?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting about that, because we're sitting around, you know, and part of our team, there's a gentleman, Matt Gerber, and he was actually a very successful travel ball owner himself down in Florida. So I've really learned a lot about the industry, but we were talking about things that we think everybody wants, but Chicago was kind of the first opportunity to get, because of COVID, the first opportunity to actually get with the industry, if you will, and just get the feedback. And I will say this: there's not one person from the lowest level, and I mean low in terms of age, baseball, to the highest of the major league level, that when they hear the concept and what we're doing and what we're going to accomplish and how we've organized it and set it up, that have said, boy, that's a terrible idea. They love it. And the interesting part in working with some of the professional organizations, and I'm talking MLB and Major League Baseball, everyone has said, you know, a lot of people have tried this. Like, what makes you guys think you're gonna succeed? And my answer is simple. It's like, because of the people we have involved. And I joke because I said our board, the board that I mentioned, which is me, Pat Casey, Kevin O'Sullivan, and Eric Bakich at Michigan. I said, collectively, we have 4 national championships between all of us. But Pat and Sully have the 4, so, but we've got a really, really good group of people that are passionate about making this game better. And I think when you do that and you have winning people, you have a great idea, and you have people that are motivated to do right and do well by the game, it will not fail. So that's, so we're excited to launch, and I thank you for bringing that up, but I'm really excited to launch that in January.
So you're going to take your expertise and share it with all those people. I mean, you can't be at all the facilities. Maybe you can do some virtual things. Maybe whether that's you or that's somebody else on your team that shows them how to do whatever. Bring the bat,
it's a member.
throw the ball,
Yeah.
weight training, whatever they're doing.
It's almost like I don't want to say unionizing, but it's like using the power of scale. So using the total membership to negotiate, whether it be better uniform deals, tournament deals, so that we can just drive the cost down so that people can afford to participate in this game that we all love. And so we just don't want, we don't want lack of participation, or we don't want lack of development to be because people can't afford it. So we think, and we know, and we're already seeing it, when we can bring strength in numbers, it can move the needle a little bit for the people that need it moved, because you guys have probably witnessed it, and I'm not familiar with all the people you've had on the show, but the cost of this game, in particular the travel ball, keeps going up, and my personal opinion is it's just playing more tournaments. There's not a lot on the development piece, so we want to help facilitate that and be a resource for all the wonderful coaches and families out there that are participating.
I've noticed that there are some organizations, and whether this is by design or this is just the way it works out, is that they play a lot of tournaments. They get together, say Wednesday or Thursday, they play their tournament. Some of them want to develop, and they have facilities, and they do that. So there's a mix. And I'm sure that's the way it is around the country. But if they don't develop, they got to be getting developed in some way. They can't just show up and play all the time.
And what we would hear, and when I started talking to families about this, is that, and this is the reality of it, because being on the coaching side, that top 5% of athletes that are playing the baseball that are ultimately going to be Division I or high level Division I, truthfully, they would be fine with or without us, with or without the Diamond Allegiance. But there's this 85 to 90% of these other families that are sitting around going, what about us? Like we want our kids to have access to great coaching, to great development, to opportunities, to exposure, all of those things. And so the more I talked to families around, the more I heard that common theme. So I'm really passionate about not just helping the top 5%. I think every family should deserve the opportunity to learn how the recruiting process works, or what can I do to help advance my child, and to also sit as a college coach with 30 some years in the game to say, you know what, it's okay to not play Division I. You can have a great time playing Division II. You can have a great time playing junior varsity, whatever, or junior college, whatever the case may be, because I tell people, and I would say this in recruiting, I got as much joy and as much agony out of my wins and losses at Miami University of Middletown, which wasn't even a junior college or NAIA, as I did at Indiana, Miami, Arizona State. And that is the truth. And so I think if we can reset the mindset and say, it's okay, just maximize your potential and have fun doing it. And that's what we're setting out to do.
One thing that really stands out that I'm real impressed with is the fact that if there's not a travel ball team, is what you're involved with still going to give some of those kids an opportunity to play this great game.
The interesting piece, and this kind of opened our eyes, when we were in Chicago, we were so laser focused on the travel ball space. And as I said, Eric Bakich designing what is the most awesome development, truly targeted individual specific development program that nobody else is doing. We had a bunch of high school coaches come up to us and say, look, we're from an area that doesn't have travel ball, but we would really like to have access to that development piece. So we're going to, we can either say, no, we're not going to allow that, but that's kind of going against the mission of what we're trying to do, which is make the game better. So we'll have the ability for folks to, even at the high school level with non-travel ball, to have a version of what we're doing, in addition to facilities, which I thought we weren't even thinking about that. But that the baseball community said, we like the development piece. And back to the whole concept of it, why I like this, there's a little bit of something for everybody. Some folks are really, really intrigued about the development stuff. Some folks are really intrigued about, hey man, I want to educate my coaches and things like that. So, and that's one of the main things we wanted to do, was to have the access. And you don't have to be from a big school. You don't have to have a lot of money, but to have the equal access to, quality instruction, quality content, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so I'm really proud about that, because you're right. The path to get beyond is through, like it or not, it's through this particular channel of travel baseball. And but I'm really excited to see how this thing really plays out and the impact that we're going to be able to make. Because what we've tried, it's also, we're selective too, because we want to partner and work with people who have like values. In other words, they put development at the forefront, and they care about kids, and they want to make this game better by creating opportunities for all.
Some people, they just want to cast a wide net. They want to get the message out there everywhere. Some people are, we're going to talk to these people behind closed doors. So what is your goal for, exposure?
That's a great question. I mean, we strategically set this up with a national footprint, I should say a regional footprint across the nation, because we want to scale appropriately. And meaning, it is a business. I mean, there's a business component to this, because, and we say that, like, we're not going to apologize for being a business, because, our motto internally is do well by doing good. So we want to be able to take the do well part and do good things in the game. So we're pretty selective in this too. Like, we don't want to kill a great aspiration or a great idea because we get greedy and try to grow too big. Like, we want to service our membership and service it well, and help. And as I said earlier, create wins for the family, the coaches, and whatever. So the conversations are happening. I mean, we're talking to, 5 to 10 clubs a week. And we're also saying, hey, I know you're vetting us and we're coming to you with an idea, but we're also vetting you, because we want to, life's too short to work with people you don't like or want. So we're trying to assess whether they have the same value set and emphasis on development and helping kids. And that is our starting point. And if we can get that piece, then we move on to the next level. But I will tell you, everyone we've talked to, they're like, tell us how to sign up. Like, we're in. And that's been really exciting, because we've been, like I said, this has been 3 years in the making. This stuff's been working on for 3 years. And to actually get out there now and start talking to people to see has been really, really fun to see the reaction of this. So, but we want to spread the word, but it's not going to be for everybody.
I think it's real exciting too. You being all the experience you've had, being a coach, especially a college coach at a couple major universities. The thing about this game is you get so many life lessons. I mean, 3 times out of 10, you go to the plate, it's a failure. You know what I'm saying? So,
oh, I know what you're saying. Yes, I do know what you're saying.
But that's what I got out of baseball, is just the fact that, it's so many life lessons. And I think it's real exciting, Tracy, that you're giving back. I think you're probably the perfect person for the job you're doing. And there's nothing like doing something that you don't want to call work. It's just
right.
So.
Guys, what do you think? He's got it going on there. I think I'm a fan of what he's doing here. Steve, I think, you were a big part of that interview, getting that started for us. What are your thoughts?
I think what Jeff said there at the end there about sharing I'm flummoxed there. Taking what they know and sharing it with people, giving back. That's what That's what I'm trying to spit out. Giving back to the game. I asked him a question. It wasn't on the playbook there, but asked him about giving back. And sometimes giving back means they're done playing at 18, but they come back. We got some kids coaching high school baseball this year that played last year. We got head coaches at the college, the high school level that are in their early 20s. We got assistant coaches that are in their 20s. They're giving back. You got guys like Tracy Smith that's been in the game as a coach for 30 years, and you count player and all that, he's 56 years old. So all but about probably the first 4 or 5 of those years. So that's what's cool. I like to see that at all levels of, everything, but we're talking about baseball.
Yep. And I tell you, one common thread or common theme for all these guys that are doing things to give back. Like, I mentioned to him, I don't know if it was on the playback or not, like Rob Barber. He knows Rob Barber. Rob Barber is the guy that runs the base Indy. He knows him. He knows Scott Rowland, who he just started the E5 baseball program. All these people, they're good people, and they're doing it for more than just trying to get kids into the bigs. Don't get me wrong. If anybody can do it, they can do it, but they're doing it to give these kids opportunity in general. And I'm just such a big fan of what they were doing. Yeah, Jeff, go ahead. You were part of.
Yeah, I was just going to mention what kind of follow up with what Steve was saying and you were saying, that I was so impressed with Tracy Smith. I mean, he's got baseball in his blood because he's been a coach. He was a player, and yet he created something that still gets him in part of baseball and again, piggybacking on what Steve was saying, the give back thing. I mean, it wouldn't have to be as an umpire. It wouldn't have to be as an assistant coach. He got involved in something unique that's still giving back to this great game.
He sure is. And I tell you, you can tell by listening to him. One of the things we didn't have on that playback was, I've mentioned this before, and Jeff, you're the one who reminded me to ask him, was I ask all these guys what their 12-year-old kid moment is. It's that moment where they, amidst everything that they have to do, it is work. And it is hard work. College baseball coaches, they got to roll up their sleeves, and they're paying the bills with what they're doing. And, Tracy Smith, he's not a coach anymore. He's starting this, and it is a business. And I like the fact that he says, we're not apologizing about being a business. You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to apologize about being a business, because you're creating jobs and you're creating opportunities. And sometimes the only way to do that is if you yourself can make a living at it. So I tip my cap to the people, and I hope he gets filthy rich off of it, to be honest with you. But I know that's not his goal. He wants to make a living and do these things that he's passionate about. But I'm all for him making a great profit off of it, because that will bring a great product. So, as we kind of wrap things up, this is March 27th, 2022, we did a recap of the college baseball scene. We did a preview of opening week for high school baseball. And I tell you, I'm just giddy about that. I'm just totally excited about it. As we wrap things up, first of all, if you're just tuning into this, our final out, make sure you go to baseballacrossindiana.com for our full episode of This Week in Baseball Across Indiana. But with that, to wrap things up for our final out, I pass it over to Lafayette and Sweet Lou. Take us home, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Always real excited, as you heard at the beginning of the show, that this time of year, it's on the eve of high school baseball officially starting tomorrow. They can start playing games. Kids have already practiced for 2 weeks. But my lesson is sort of kind of piggybacks on what happened in the NCAA tournament this past week. The fact that don't ever give up. The old Jim Valvano saying that there's always a chance. Don't look too far ahead in your schedule. Just when the season starts tomorrow, and this, is pointed toward coaches and players, is just get out and create a memory this season, have fun, and don't ever give up. There's always just that one hit. There's always just that one pitch, and something will happen. And the fact that some things you can't control, like if it's David and Goliath, like St. Peter's, and I'll mention it, Purdue University. I mean, I think everybody knows Purdue may have been looking ahead when they got beat by St. Peter's this week, but don't look too far ahead on your schedule. Don't try and worry about something you can't control. If you're a small school and you're playing a big school, don't ever give up. The big stars are still going to make errors. The big stars are still going to strike out, and just go out this season and have fun. Don't take the game too serious. Play hard and just create some memories. And that's my final out.